Hello, this is Paul Palmer, and
Natasha Todorvic Cowan. How you doing today, Paul?
I'm good, thank you, Natasha. And I thought today we'd be talking about experts, but actually, I've just talked about experts, so we're going to talk about the fakes. So, as you see, we've got the dice
Oh,
where you've got to roll the dice and see whether it's a fact or fiction.
I love that. And you know what, Paul? This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I've watched so many people over the years pretend they are, quote, spiral dynamics experts without realizing this is a brand.
Yeah, because
There's your giveaway.
they think of it as a topic rather than a brand, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So, what is it that you're finding with the quote fake experts? How does that show up in your world?
Well, it's people that say they can do things and then they apply and they get a job to do it and they're supposedly leading a team. And then when you look into their experience, they have no experience whatsoever in the area that they're supposed to be leading. And what I tend to find is they lean back on their experience in the area that they've normally worked in, where they've got their experience. So it might be it might be the same industry, for example. So it could be somebody in pharmaceuticals who's
Yep.
worked in HR,
Yep.
but then they want to, they think, oh, well, I want to move across into something else. And they take a role in a management role, for example, in continuous improvement or quality assurance. And they start leading the team, but they lead them in the way that you would run a HR department.
Right. Well, that makes absolute sense. And actually, that's one reason 50% of leaders fail when they go to a new position, because what they're doing is they're taking the talents and expertise from one area and then trying to force fit their approach into another area without seeing that new context and those new people. So that's common. And look, I don't think it's a problem when people are trying to expand their experience, as long as they're upfront with it and the organization is providing them support to do that. I think the problem is when people pretend to be an expert in something that they are not.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've had that experience. I've hired a lawyer, and the lawyer was supposed to be an expert in intellectual property. This was, years ago. And they didn't know enough, and I didn't know enough to know they didn't.
Mm.
And then you live with that bad advice for years after that. And I think that's the kind of false expert we're talking about.
Yeah. It's when you take on I think John Lee says it. His recommendation is you always, if you go into a new area, make sure you've got an 80% overlap with what you're doing and only move 20% at a time. And the
Oh,
reason he says that
I
is because
like
you've got to,
that.
sorry?
I like that. That gives you sort of these nice realms of proportion
Yeah.
that you can work around.
I think doing
That's,
it the other way around, if you do 20% of what you know and you have to learn 80%, I think it gets too much. I know when I was first starting in my own business, I decided to do something completely new.
mhm.
It didn't work. And then 6 months down the line, I decided, well, all my knowledge is in this area. Why am I doing this?
Mm.
And I continued with my own business rather than going back into a permanent role and chose to use my expertise that I developed over the 25 years before that. And then it
Right.
just boomed. Everything was perfect. Well, then it depends what you call perfect, but I had a, I got
By
contracts.
comparison.
Well, like for example, my first QP contract became a quality management team leaders contract with QP included, managing the team. It was supposed to be for 3 months and it lasted 2 years.
Mm.
And then the next one that I got recruited into, similar situation, which I found quite coincidental. I was recruited to do a 3 months cover, and 2 years later I finished. It was, I think that was 23 months rather than 2 years exactly, but
Right. So was that kind of that 80-20 rule where 80% of it was your zone of genius and then 20% you got to expand? Because I think, to
not really.
grow in human beings, we need to have stuff that challenges us.
I think it was 100% my expertise, and I
Uh-huh.
think the extra bit that added onto it that gave me room for further development was running my own business
Mm.
rather than working for somebody else. And
Mhm.
that was what I'd been learning for the period that I was doing the previous. So I bought a franchise, and it was about building businesses, building teams, building organizations, making them work more efficiently.
Mhm.
And that's the part that I've now brought into my area of expertise. So I added the efficiency part to the quality assurance, QP, and I continue to build on the business expertise.
Well, and you are an expert, and you worked in the range of your expertise, and I think our conversation is around, really there is a push for people to be seen as an expert, and they're going to do anything to be perceived in that way, whether they are experts or not. And I think that's the distinction that we're trying to make today.
Yeah. The bit that the one that no that I find the most frustrating is when somebody comes up to you, they've started a new role in a company, and they're coming to you saying, "I'm the expert in," and then you look at their CV and you see that they joined 1 month ago, and prior to that they were doing something completely different, and they can't apply the knowledge.
Well, does that really happen in your area?
Yeah,
I mean, look, that is totally common for a lot of coaches and consultants and some in the quote expert space. But that surprises me that it happens in pharma.
it's the business development people. They're trying to uh, get you to take on, for example, a EQMS.
Hmm.
They might start selling, joined a company for an EQMS, and instead of being somebody with a pharmaceutical background, they've got an IT background, and they've gone from a developer's background to a sales background in an industry they've never heard of.
Ooh, yeah, that's
It don't work.
it's interesting, and I remember this stat where people who are the least experienced um, consider themselves more experienced than they actually are because they don't know what they don't know. And the actual experts, generally, if you ask them, what's your level of expertise, most of them will say, I'm kind of average.
Yeah, that's quite funny actually, because I was reading somewhere that they said that the ones that are least experienced are the ones that overestimate their abilities, and the ones that are most experienced are the ones that underestimate their abilities.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think we will leave it there because that's quite an interesting point, and we'll talk to you soon. That's Paul Palmer and
Natasha Todorvik Cowan signing out.